I'm author Mark Muncy,
And I'm author Erika Lance.
and this is Eerie Travels. Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers.
Yes, it is spooky season.
It is
Our,
spooky. Woo!
it's our
That's my ghost
favorite time
impression.
of year. It's the most
Yep.
wonderful time of the year.
Okay,
But
don't do that. We're gonna get complaints from people who are Christmas fans. So
hey, it works for both. It works for both. But
I don't know about that.
but oh my gosh, we've been crazy, with Halloween and all the spookiness. It is the month. It is the month of all months.
You know what, Mark? I'm gonna have people create an Eerie Travels drinking game. Every time you say "Oh my gosh," and every time I say "No," people have to do shots. So
Okay,
they're gonna be drunk every episode.
but
Every
by
episode.
by a minute in, so. But today I am super excited because we have a guest.
Well, before you go on your guest, you need to let everybody know you're going to be at BartowCon in Bartow,
Yes.
Florida.
Yeah, October 14th.
Yes.
That Saturday. The wonderful people who do Sci-Fi Bartow, Sean and Lori, they are doing their first ever indoor con called BartowCon, and they've got Robin Curtis from Star Trek. They're trying, they've done Sci-Fi Bartow is like one of my favorite events, and this is their branching out. So I am all in. I'll be there for the inaugural one. Can't wait to see what they have coming. So by going to Bartow, we get to go by one of my favorite places in the world and see one of my favorite people in the world. And that is our special guest today. And I am so honored to know this lovely person. And they are the amazing and wonderful. Well, you know what? Let's let them introduce themselves. So come on aboard, Krislin, and tell us about yourself.
Hi, so my name is Krislin. I run the Wonder House down in Bartow, Florida. I'm originally from Europe, but I've always been very much into spooky things. So I guess Halloween for me is more of a lifestyle than a holiday. So I'm super excited that you guys would have me on for this particular episode because I've been in the throes of setting up for Halloween tours for the Wonder House. So for the past 2 weeks, I've been setting stuff up, and I'm really excited because tours launch on October 1st. So the clock is ticking, and I'm a little stressed, but it'll be awesome.
Okay, so I have to go back a tick. I'm infamous for going back a tick, right?
Yeah.
What in the hell is the Wonder House? Because it sounds like sort of like an amusement park for kids, and I am distinctly under the impression that is not the case. So going back, Krislin, what is the Wonder House?
So the Wonder House is actually one of Florida's earlier tourist attractions. So back in 1877, a gentleman named Conrad Shook was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he was the eldest of 7 children, born very, very poor. He only had a 4th grade education. However, he was very crafty. He was very intelligent. And he ended up actually patenting the mass manufacturing system of the modern cinder block. Fun fact. And he came down to Florida in 1926 and acquired property down here in Bartow, about 14 acres. And ended up creating what he would consider to be his dream home. However, in 1999, sure, okay, Krislin, 1929, when everything collapsed, he lost all his money that he had invested in the land. And he actually opened the house up for tours. So the reason it's called the Wonder House, it's kind of like a smart house of the 1920s. So he had air conditioning using a geothermal system of water running through the walls, keeping the house about 7 degrees cooler. And in addition to that, you could actually use that same recycled water to irrigate all your plants on the outside. He had a laundry chute system. He had closets. Nobody had closets in the 1920s. So he was very, very, very much ahead of his time. And it was a very popular tourist destination from 1934 until about the 1940s, early 50s. It was finally closed in 1963 when the owner decided to basically sell the property. But basically, it's just one of Florida's like roadside attractions from back in the day.
Well, that makes sense. So what made you decide to get involved with it at all? Like, what made you decide to go on this journey of restoring this house?
So back in 2015, my ex-partner and I, we saw it on Google Maps actually, and decided to go check it out back in the day. and to explore it a little bit, and then ended up actually buying the house at auction in September of that particular year. We at that point went through the process of trying to purchase it, closed on it in November of 2015, and pretty much turned it back into a museum on a partial basis. So that way people can come through and they can enjoy the house as it currently stands, and then aid in the restoration process by taking a tour.
Wow, that's neat. So you're restoring it. Are you restoring it to like the water in the walls, like all of that stuff? Are you putting back everything he had, or what is the plan there?
Well, I mean, it's just me working on it right now, so it's incredibly difficult because I do work a full-time job and two side jobs or part-time jobs, basically. Don't know that I can get that water running back through the walls because that's kind of disintegrated in so many ways, because this was prior to stainless steel. Everything's kind of rusted away, so that water does not work the way you want it to.
Some of the previous owners cemented in some of the things and basically had no interest in restoring it. They were just living in it and converting it to the way they wanted it to be.
Correct. And they tried to modernize it so much, and that was kind of the issue, is undoing a lot of what they did and then kind of putting back some of those like inventions. But it's very difficult because despite the fact that Conrad had no formal education, there's some things that I cannot figure out because there are no blueprints to the house. They were created 11 years after, and there's only one surviving one. I don't know where the rest of them are. And the original sketches do not look like what the house was actually built as. So there's not a whole lot of reference points to look at. There are almost no photographs of the interior of the home. And I'm very close with the original family that built the house. So it's been a challenge in some regards. I was actually just working on one of the bathrooms where there's a sunken tub. So prior to, CCTV, Conrad actually had a system of mirrors all throughout the house, so you could always see the front door. So I was just moving a bunch of things in a bathroom where there's a sunken tub, and you could stand in there and you could look down through a system of mirrors to see who was at the front door. And so kind of like how we have Ring cameras today, you can always see the front door. He had a system of mirrors in the kitchen, in the bathroom, in the dining room, all throughout the house. You could always see who was coming to take a tour at the front door.
One of the many amazing things in this house.
So let's talk a little bit about, is you're getting this house, it's already open for tours and stuff, but you're doing something because of Halloween, and is this house haunted?
I leave that open for interpretation.
Mark, do you think this house is haunted?
Well, I think, Krislin, when I first started looking into this house, because I was writing about it for Freaky Florida, and I hadn't met Krislin yet, and I had just heard that the house had been purchased and was being restored. So this was about the same year, 2015. And I had heard all these stories, these ghostly stories of kids who walked by the house, and it had been abandoned for some time. So of course, there's the stories of the haunted house, in Bartow, and it is an impressive building. It's so unique. And they would walk by those gated rows, or they would sneak onto the property and then be chased off by a spirit or something like that. And when I finally talked to Krislin, I think one of the things you said at the time, you were very disappointed because there wasn't a ghost. But now that you guys have been doing all this rebuilding and then bringing in all these artifacts from all over the world, I mean, you have an amazing collection. But but I think now you've brought some stuff in, right?
There are a lot of objects inside the house. However, not all of them have things connected to it. And again, I always leave it open because I'm very particular, because I've always been very much a spiritual person, and I'm very sensitive to things. So because I'm sensitive does not mean everybody else around me is. And I don't know if they can see, hear, and feel it necessarily. So I don't ever advertise the house being haunted, because what I feel and see in here is not what somebody else on a tour might. So I can't guarantee that you'll see or, feel anything. But I guess maybe on a new or full moon in my backyard, you might see some stuff.
Well, have you encountered stuff? I mean, here's the thing, like it's so funny because we're coming out of doing listener tales a couple episodes ago, and people, questions, and they ask us honestly, because a lot of people have been told they're crazy for their things that they've seen and stuff like I feel that there's by nature, people want to shut down what people have experienced, right? And so, looking at it and going, everybody needs to form their opinion. And then, Mark is another purveyor of bringing home haunted objects for no other reason than I think to piss off his children is actually what I think it's just like a long running gag to piss off his children and to make it so when eventually he passes on, they have to go through all this stuff in the house. That's what I think is going to eventually
It's to avoid empty nest syndrome. I don't like being alone in the house, so I have to have these things to, that bring their attachment, so I have someone to talk to.
Yeah, no, it's anyway terrifying to be at his house. But have you, Krislin, experienced stuff yourself with the house?
I've experienced a lot of things, and I've always experienced things just throughout my entire life. And that's the thing, is it's incredibly personal. So there's some things that I'm willing to disclose and some things that I'm just not willing to disclose. And it just entirely depends on how open some people are. Because there's some people that will exactly look at you like, oh my God, you're absolutely insane. Like, that never happened. How could you even say that? How can you speak that into existence? But there's some things that I'm like, it happened at 4:30 in the afternoon. I looked outside. I saw Conrad Shook, the man who built the house, in full color. And very rarely have I seen any kind of apparitions in full color. Typically, it's like shadows, black and white, kind of grayscale. But I saw Conrad just standing outside wearing his overalls and a red flannel shirt just out by the fountain. This was 4:30 in the afternoon because I'd gotten home from work. I let my dog out and I was setting up for Christmas. And I just looked to the left. I see him standing there. I blink, he's gone. And I was like, well, biscuits, what the heck? Am I losing my darn mind now? But I've heard him singing in the house. So last year I went through a pretty heavy life change, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it was really, really tough on me. It was emotionally, mentally, and physically a taxing time. But Conrad, the man who built the house, I would hear him constantly. And it would just be in the afternoon. I would hear somebody singing. And I mean, my dog, Joan of Bark, can't sing like that. So I thought it was just kind of strange. But it was also, Joan is the best.
Yes.
But I would hear an older gentleman's voice like singing. And people are always like, aren't you ever freaked out? I'm like, I'm only afraid of real people, darling. Like, I'm not afraid of spirits.
Yep. And that is one thing we should point out, travelers. This is a private residence. So if you Google that up, only go for proper tour times, and book ahead, because you might interact with some other spirit, like the Second Amendment, and then you'll be a spirit.
Get off my lawn, basically.
I know when you first bought it, you guys had some issues with that, where people were coming up and trying to sneak into the house. It's like, wait, we're watching Netflix. No.
Yeah.
It was such a struggle back in the day. And I mean, knock on wood, it's been, quiet. But now that I've said that, I've spoken into existence, right? I always try to let people know, like, hey, listen, it's a private residence. Just be respectful. I mean, I open up my front gate for Halloween. I pass out candy. That's the closest, the general public gets without booking a tour. But that's the thing, is like, it's my full-time home. So it's very difficult, because when you run something, you have to keep it entirely managed, because most people that see it assume that it's out in like a field or in the middle of nowhere. However, you're in the middle of a suburban neighborhood. That's not quite the case. So you just got to be respectful and kind. And if people are interested, they're always welcome to book a tour or send me a message online. Always happy to answer, questions about the house.
So for Halloween, are you doing a haunted house type situation? What are you doing for Halloween with this? Amazing. I can't wait to go see this house. And yes, I will go inside of it, Mark. I know you and listeners are like, Erika would never go inside this house, but I will. It sounds amazing. It will be during the daytime. Thank you. Please and thank you. I don't mind a 4:30. I don't mind a singing ghost. I'm all about those kind of things.
Oh, I think you're gonna love the sub basement, Erika. That's all for you. So
what? Whoa.
Oh, it is.
What the hell is the sub basement?
So, Florida, not many basements. because you dig down about 6 feet, you hit the watershed. You dig down a little more, you're just in limestone. And then the next thing you know, you're in the ocean water. It's not, you can't build basements. But Conrad, he had no qualms about digging a basement.
Okay. So that sounds terrifying.
And then there's the sub basement, right? Right, Krislin?
Yep, there's a sub basement. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna nerd out on y'all.
Yes,
a
please.
second.
That's what we're here for.
Please nerd away.
Right we're right off the Lake Whale Bridge out here in Bartow. But the interesting thing is, so because Florida is a karst formation, basically, so it's limestone with a bunch of sinkholes. That's why we have the sinkholes we do, because of the rainwater becomes acidic, it makes holes, and then down to the Florida aquifer, and that's where we get our fresh water here in Florida. So in this particular area, back in the day, we used to have something called Kissingen Spring. So Bartow had its own spring in that particular area. I learned this week that Bartow has a couple other springs on private property.
Oh.
And I was like, how do I reach out to these people online and be like, hey, listen, I just want to go diving. Can I get some permission? But that's besides the point. I didn't know we had more than just the big one, which was Kissingen Spring. Unfortunately, due to the phosphate mining industry out here, they kind of overdid it. They sucked up all the beautiful water from the aquifer, and it dropped the level here. And actually in Bartow, a lot of people speculated that the moat out front and the house was fed by spring water, but that's actually not true. It was just runoff from rain, basically, because a lot of people said, oh, well, the moat dried up out front where the bridges cross when Kissingen Spring ran dry, and it wasn't. The water stayed in the moat for about, about 80 years. So it did dry up for a short period of time, but it filled back up with all the rain, and it stayed there for a good amount of time until the early 2000s at least. So, but going back to the Halloween tour portion of it. So Halloween tours run through the entire month of October. It's the only time that I talk about the supernatural aspects of the home. I won't ever mention it unless it's the October tour, just because I want to keep all the tours different so people can come back for different experiences. So I have daytime tours. I have a 2:00 tour. I have a 4:00, a 7, and there's one I haven't released yet, but I will be. I guess when this goes live, it'll be ready. I'm doing a ghost hunting tour. So I'll have EMF detectors, and it'll be 10 o'clock, and then you can kind of join me on a guided ghost hunt of the house. Again, I can't guarantee something's going to happen, but it's a totally different experience. So we'll
that's
see what
new
happens.
and exciting.
But you'll see all four floors, and you never get to see all 4 floors on the regular tour. So I think that'll be really cool.
That's amazing. Oh, count me in. I'm gonna get there. So now you guys, you decorate the heck out of this thing. It looks like I've been to places like the Ringling Museum, the Biltmore Mansion, all these things. They do these amazing holiday displays, but you alone at the Wonder House put on a display that rivals them all. So you've got Victorian caskets, you've got candles lit everywhere. It's to die for.
Wow.
So what's on the agenda for this year? Anything new?
Anything new? So I'm turning the basement into a doctor's office, which will be really cool. So I collect a lot of medical antiques. I have my 1930s dentist set up. So people donate all kinds of random stuff to me all the time. And then I'll do basement more as a doctor's office. Upstairs, I'll still have my Victorian funeral, but I'm going to step it up a notch this year. So every year I try to add a little bit more to it. And then the dining room, I'm going to do I like to call it Disney's Haunted Mansion inspired dining room, where I use all my uranium glass to make it look like it's floating off the table. So all the skeletons are sitting around, and everything is kind of levitating, and it's just different things like that. It just takes a really, really, really long time. And my friends always ask, hey, can I come and help? But my problem is I love talking. So I get so distracted, and I just want to hang out instead. I'm like, oh my God, I fell behind an entire day because, well, shoot, I need to just shut up.
Well, I do have a question. So if people donate stuff to you, kind of much like Mark's thing, is there anything that somebody's given to you that you've then gone, nope, like an Erika nope, and gotten rid of it? Like, I'm not keeping this in my house?
I have to turn down some donations because it'll be like larger pieces of furniture. It'll be like a set of chairs or like a dining room table. That's typically kind of the stuff that it is. I just don't have the space for it. And you would think that a house that's between 8 to 10,000 square feet has a space. Fun fact, it really doesn't. The rooms are fairly small because every single room is cornered by a porch. So it's not as big as people think because a lot of those spaces have been enclosed throughout the years. But there's not anything that anyone's ever donated where I've been like, no, because most people know me pretty well. And they're like, hey, I found this squirrel. I put it in a jar for you. Or my neighbor's like, hey, Krislin, I killed the snake. Get a jar. And so I run over there in my, barefoot with a jar, a salsa jar, nonetheless, that I didn't even take the label off it yet. I put the snake in a jar, fill it with a high percent of rubbing alcohol, and call it a dang day.
Wait a minute. What did I just sign myself up for?
Oh, there's so many dead things in jars. There's so many bones. I collect a lot of bones. I like to just wander in the woods. One of my favorite activities, is I love paddleboarding and I love diving. So I just go out there on my board and I go through the swamp and I'll pick up just random bones and feathers and things that I find in the woods. I'll just go barefoot too. Got to be a true Florida man here.
Yeah, no, super brave, okay, you say that, and I have to say, this is a story. I mean, we're airing this in a couple weeks, so it'll be, but literally, did you see that story? See, I can't even think about paddleboarding and stuff in Florida because there is a gator. This was on CNN yesterday, where a gator was dragging around a dead human body in its mouth. Yeah. And a neighbor saw it and was like, called the police because they were like, that's a human body, and they don't know where the body came from.
What city?
St. Pete. It was off of Omerton in one of the little waterways. This guy next to two schools saw this. I think it's like an 8 or something foot gator. It was a pretty big gator. Yeah. And he saw something in its mouth and he was like, oh, is that a mannequin? And then he got closer to it and he was like, that's not a mannequin. And he had to call the police. So they humanely put down the gator. I don't know what that means, but they killed it. But they don't know what this happened.
There's no humane way to kill gators, unfortunately. No. I follow a lot of Florida Springs information online. Yeah, they just axe them basically. It's really unfortunate because there was one out in Ocala National Forest out of Alexander, and it didn't do anything wrong. The gentleman was in the wrong for going into the swampy or murky areas where the gator was known to be nesting during nesting season, and she slipped at them. And what they do is they get rid of them, and by getting rid of, they kill them, and it's really sad. And there's different organizations here in Florida where they'll try to take the gator in and they'll keep it in basically a sanctuary, but it's usually the gators do not go after people. I've been around so many gators. They're right next to my paddleboard. They don't care.
No, if you don't bother them, they're not going to bother you. Yeah.
Well, exactly. I'm going to say I think that's true and not true, because there have been so many cases of people going into the waters and stuff like that and then getting taken down. I think it depends. It depends on if they have a good food source and things like that, because we're not above gators on the scale. Humans are food for gators, and I don't
we love our gators, and Carrie will guard them to her dying day as well. So just leave them alone during mating season and don't play a trombone near.
Friends are all absolutely not, and they will paddle to the other side of the river. I'm like,
exactly, and don't play a trombone near them because that triggers them. So.
Trombones trigger. Okay, that's
another episode. We got to go into a gator episode at some point. We'll get somebody from Gatorland. We'll get Savannah from Gatorland, and she can talk gators for us one episode. So.
That would be terrifying.
But, now in that dining room, I recall you have a leftover from the Arcadia Opera House before it got destroyed by Hurricane Irma.
Yeah, it is still there. So it's actually the Arcadia Opera House's piano, and found it in an antique store for, I want to say, $200 way back in the day, in 2015. Yeah, that was 2015. That was even before the Wonder House was even a full-on consideration at that point in time. So I remember moving the dang thing onto U-Haul, moving it to my ex's apartment at the time, and then we moved it to the Wonder House. but we were like always told, oh my God, it's a haunted piano. Because, you know, it came out of the haunted Arcadia Opera House.
Yes. Yeah.
It never played, not even once. Now I just make Joan play it, so I'll pick her up during the tour and I'll put her paws on the keys and she'll play You a Beautiful Song, and she hates it so much. She's like, Mom, seriously. But it's never played a single darn thing. It's completely out of tune from being moved twice. When it was actually moved into the Wonder House, it was me, my ex-partner, and then his friend. It broke every single board up a ramp in the back. It broke every single tile in the hallway because it's so heavy, and this is exactly where it's going to stay in the room.
It's there forever now.
Like,
yeah, that is
haunted objects. It's there forever.
And are you still looking for a 6-piece uranium glass set? Is that what you're looking for your table?
I'm always looking for uranium glass. Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
It's really hard to find a 6 set, or even like 4, like a good set of 4 that matches. I think I've kind of had to give up and do more of an Alice in Wonderland-esque mismatched kind of version because it's so difficult to find a match set.
Yeah. For those who don't know, uranium glass is very, very hard to get, and it is beautiful and it glows. So amazing stuff.
True. There are some amazing collections. I actually saw, I can't believe you brought this up. I saw a post the other day where somebody found, it was like a punch bowl set, like at a flea market. They found it and they're like, I think that's what this is. But of course they couldn't test it. So they bought it anyway and brought it home, and it was a complete punch bowl set.
Nice.
Uranium. Anyway.
That's a treasure. So I think we should take a quick break.
Yep.
And then we come back. We will talk more with Krislin and the Wonder House. Erie, Appalachia. Gear up for a frightful jaunt into the darkest reaches of the ancient Appalachians. Folks deep within the Appalachian hollers lean close to the campfire to share stories of the inexplicable with hushed awe. Monsters rumbling in the hills, strange lights darting through the pitch black night sky, horrible occurrences almost ineffable in their bizarre tragedy. Tall tales, you might say. Tell that to the Flatwoods monster in Braxton County, West Virginia, or the Goat Man of Louisville. Look into his humanoid eyes and let him know you don't believe. And what of those apparitions in Mammoth Cave's Corpse Rock, or the Satan spawn known as the Jersey Devil? How do you respond when confronted by these mysteries? From the metaphysical energy that swirls near Serpent Mound in Ohio to Point Pleasant's Mothman legacy, Mark Muncy and Carrie Schultz explore the dark history lurking in the shadows of Appalachia. Read by Mark Muncy, author and experts on strange folklore with appearances on shows such as Ancient Aliens, The Curse of Robert the Doll, and many, many more.
Greetings, mortals and others. I'm Dick Terhune, the voice from hell. I work with haunted attractions all over the US, Canada, and Europe to increase audiences and enhance their experience with highly effective commercials, narrations, animatronic character voices, whatever your dark heart desires. Let me help you do more, scare more, profit more. Find out more at Voice from Hell on Facebook and at voicefromhell.com.
Okay,
We're back.
Yes.
Yeah, we said that in joining. Jinx.
Yeah, you owe me, I'd say you owe me a Coke, but I don't drink Coke.
And neither do I. So, it's,
you owe me a hot
Long
cider.
Island iced tea.
I'd love to see you drinking a Long Island iced tea, Mark. I'd pay money for that, actually.
I'd be asleep on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. 2 sips in. Okay.
Yep,
so Krislin, let's talk paranormal stuff. Let's do it.
I'm sorry.
So where do you want to start?
So there's just a lot of things that have happened in the house, but one of the stranger things that happened that I really wasn't expecting. So last year, what was it? Hurricane Ian that came around at the end of September, right? That was my first hurricane in the house by myself. And I'm a very practical person. I like to have all my stuff planned. So in the basement, I had a big old pile of, materials. So it's all my drills and my saws and extra pieces of plywood and the tarps and just buckets. Everything was ready because I'm like, all right, if anything happens, I'm ready to rock and roll. So I go upstairs and I let Joan out and we run around outside for as long as we possibly can. And I take her inside and I just keep hoping. I'm like, oh my gosh, please, nothing happened to this house. Please, for the love of goodness. I cannot deal with it. It's a lot. It was my first time being in a hurricane with the house. And it was very, very trippy because it was very spooky. Joan snored through the entire thing. Shocking. While I was running around solving 10,000 problems, like unplugging all the big planters where all the water used to run down into, and they would turn into like watering troughs, and I had to like uncork them and let all the water drain out. But so right before the hurricane started, I decided to be really silly, just kind of as like a coping mechanism, I guess, to go into the parlor. And what I did was I put on, my best quote unquote zombie apocalypse outfit. I got my shotgun, I got machete, and so I did like a silly photo shoot. So I'm a photographer, right? So I do all kinds of silly photo shoots, and I just thought it would be funny to do that. And I set it up. I set my phone on a little table and I take a bunch of photos. Joan's not in the room. She's already sleeping upstairs. And as I'm reviewing the photos, there's something in the corner of a photo. And I'm like, well, there was nothing on the floor. There is nothing on the floor. I don't own a cat or a chicken or whatever the heck that thing is in the photo. But sure enough, there's this bizarre apparition. And it's not an orb. It's like a full-on figure. And the best way that my dad could describe it was Furbies from the late 1990s.
Oh yeah, those were terrifying.
Yeah.
It looks like a Furby, honestly. It was really, really strange. My dad's like, that's your childhood Furby coming back to haunt you, Krislin. I'm like, absolutely not. And it kind of almost looks like a bizarre gargoyle. I don't know how to describe it, but that was really spooky because I just did not anticipate that at all. Very, very, very strange. There's been a lot of bizarre things that have happened in the house. I mean, I can speak for a lot of it, but even people that don't necessarily believe in the paranormal have had experiences. So when my ex-partner, I think, was watching television just downstairs by himself, I was somewhere upstairs. He thought that I came down the stairs and to the first floor, which is more of like an open space, and walked and just stood in the doorway. I'm pretty derpy and silly, so I do stupid stuff like that all the time. So he thought it was me coming down the stairs and standing in the doorway, the archway, in the darkness. And he's like, Krislin, what the heck are you doing? He blinks, and then it's not me. Nobody's there. And he's like, what the heck? And he did not believe in this stuff. He still does not believe in this stuff.
Yeah,
and he hollers for me upstairs. He like comes upstairs. He's like, Krislin, I need you to come down here right now. I was like, what? Okay. So I go down the stairs, and he's like, okay, I need you to tell me if you feel something, because he knows that I'm sensitive. So I go down the stairs. I cross that pathway, and I'm like, there's somebody standing right here. And he's like, yeah, no, I thought that was you. I was like, well, I've been sewing upstairs. Like, I never came down. Like, I'm like elbows deep in fabric right now. Like, no, absolutely not. And he's like, well, somebody came down the stairs and stared at me from the darkness. And he's one of those people that does not believe in anything. He was creeped out to no end. There's been times where I've heard footsteps coming up the stairs, like in the middle of the night, and rattled doorknobs. There's times where I've heard voices outside the bathroom. There's times where the lights have just flickered just incessantly. And they're brand new bulbs. I'm like, okay, can you leave now? And it's really funny because it hasn't happened in such a long time. And there's just little bizarre, peculiar things that happen. But I delve into a lot of the stories, during the tour. My personal favorites are the ones where I don't know if it's the house itself or something. So my ex-partner's mom was never a fan of the Wonder House. And she would come for his birthday in April, and she would come during the holidays. I was never home. I was usually working at school. I was down in Fort Myers visiting my family. So the house did not like his mother because she was very negative about it. So they went out for dinner one night. I was down in Fort Myers visiting my family because it was the holidays, having dinner with them. When they got back to the house, because everyone would assume that I would just lock her out because, issues. Instead, locked her out with the deadbolt. We never used the deadbolts. We used the regular doorknob, mechanism. And sure enough, it happened every single year. The house would lock her out. And then one year, the house took it a little bit further, where I was at work, so I got an alibi about 140 kids. They were home in the middle of the day. she was walking down the stairs and she fell and like busted her arm as if she had like slid on butter, and they had to take her to the hospital. And I remember getting a text message from him at the time saying, "You are so lucky you have an alibi right now, because everyone thinks that you just slicked that whole dang staircase, Krislin." Like, no. And I think the house was like, you know what? I'm going to push you down the stairs because I'm tired of your attitude. That she was so friendly. She was always so negative during the holidays too. And I think the house got so fed up. It was like, you know what? No, we're done.
My gosh.
Meds are a wonderful thing. So, they make everybody tolerable. But my experience, we were there with a bunch of YouTube vloggers last Halloween, right? Early days for the tour, and we got a little sneak preview, and we were all there in the house, and I had been in many times. So, Krislin's running the tour and showing everybody. And I'm sitting next to our good friend Johnny Bartow from Haunt Scene, and he and I were, he was filming and we were talking, and then you were going on, talking about the ceiling in the main parlor in the main room, and how it used to change out with different paintings for different holidays and stuff. Sadly, those are lost to antiquity. So if anybody in Bartow has access to those and would like to give them back to Krislin, she would be very happy, and you could restore them to the Wonder House. I'm sure they're sitting on some bathroom somewhere. But anyway, we were sitting there and we were looking at it, and I'm just looking up at the ceiling, and he's standing right next to me, and we hear just this kind of wistful sigh next to us. And I looked at him and he looked at me, and we were both like, wait a minute, that wasn't me, that wasn't you. And we're both we're about to say something, but then we're moving on to the next room, and we both just kind of looked at each other and went, okay. And I'm like, the house is letting us know that we're here. So, that it's here. So.
Yeah, no, that's I'm regretting volunteering to go to this.
Too late. No backsies.
So I can't, no taking backsies.
No backsies.
Krislin, you take on this house. What about, do you mind going backwards a little bit in time? We're going to Scooby-Doo this to your parent. What made you even think, like, because if you're putting dead things in jars, wow, I can't believe, like, things I hoped I could say on this podcast, but never was sure that I would. What started your paranormal journey? Like that because I can tell how much you really love this stuff. I think it's great. And to put the love and attention into this house. I mean, that we see all these little videos about restoring things, but that takes a lot of work and a lot of intention to do these things. And you have to have a love for it, because otherwise it's not going to go well. Where does this love for the paranormal come from?
So if I have to backtrack all the way back, so I was born in the Soviet Union, and the apartment building complex that I grew up in, it used to be old army barracks from World War II. And my parents would always tell me how I would mention things to them growing up. So I was 3, 4, 5 years old when we were living at that particular location. And I would say, the doorknobs are watching me. My parents would be like, oh my God, what is wrong with this kid? Jesus. And there were so many things that I'm like, there's something wrong here. There's something inherently wrong. It's watching me. And my parents would get creeped out. They're like, what the heck is wrong with this kid? But I've always seen things and felt things. So when we moved to the United States, I was 5 years old, and it doesn't matter, like the places I've lived in, I've always seen and felt things. Growing up, I was obsessed with horror survival video games in elementary school. So like Silent Hill, Resident Evil, Parasite Eve. I loved all of those things. And it left kind of a lasting impact. But growing up, I had 3 major kind of goals for myself. I wanted to be an archaeologist. I wanted to restore a historic house, and I wanted to live in a museum. So I can knock 2 of those off the list.
Heck yeah.
Never did the whole archaeology thing. And going to art school, but it is what it is. I get to kind of do it on this side in a way. I go through a lot of the woods and dig for things, and I would love to get a drone so I could hunt further into the woods without needing to actually go in them, but we'll see how that goes. I I wish I had a counter on my Google Maps, like for satellite, just to see how long I spend just tracing rivers and tracing like paths
Oh
through
yeah.
the woods, just to find things that are out there. But I've always had an interest in the paranormal because I've always felt, seen, and kind of heard things. So it's always been kind of a lifelong journey. I don't know what the best word for that is, but yeah.
That is a good word for that.
No, I think it is, I think it's first of all, that sounds very interesting growing up like that, because that's something me and Mark talk about a lot, is that children tend to say, I know as a child I saw things, and my mom's rule was just like, don't say it in front of other people because they'll think you're crazy when you talk about the stuff you're seeing, right? So could tell
Oh,
her
I've done
about
that before, and they were all like, "What the heck?"
exactly. But I
And
think it's
it turned
great.
out in my favor. I warned them, and nobody listened. And then it came true. And then I remember my dad coming to my room the next day. And he was like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "I told you." And he's like, "But how did you know?" I'm like, "I literally told you the night before something was going to happen. Y'all didn't listen to me. And now here we are." I was in middle school. And that was the funniest moment of my life. It was actually something really bad. I basically told them that somebody was going to get really, really hurt that night. And sure enough, the next day, a man ended up in the hospital with broken ribs and a broken arm. That was at my parents' house,
Wow.
to no fault of their own. And they were all just very confused by why I said anything that I did. Because I remember them laughing it off. Adults having some glasses of wine and laughing at, a 12-year-old kid just walking in the room and prophesizing someone's going to get jacked up. It's like, what? Okay, sure.
Well, and I think sometimes it's hard because it depends on the details. Because a lot of times those kind of things, you don't have the exact specific, like on the corner of 2nd Street and 38th Street at 10 p.m. Like it's very hard to go, hey, you're going to be dating. But I think it's interesting, just that you can do that. But after that, when you gave them information, did they listen to you? Things and sort of the premonition?
Not really.
Still no.
Still no.
They see it as like silly or strange. It's because they don't understand it and they don't feel the same way. So it's kind of like a novelty to them, because we'll go somewhere and my dad will look at me like, "Is there something here? Does somebody die here?" I'm like, "Dad, it doesn't work like that."
Well, maybe he's
No.
feeling it and he just doesn't want to admit it, so
No,
I know that was my dad.
Exactly. I'm like, "Come on, Dad, what is this?"
Yeah, it's gonna. I believe in Bigfoot, but I don't believe in ghosts. What?
Yeah. But
Oh.
so now you also have a fun hobby on the side, because you do a lot of diving, but you go it one step further. You have done some charity work with a mermaid tail. Am I correct in this?
Yes, you are correct.
I've seen the pictures. Are you in? Are you're familiar with Wiki Watchy? I'm sure, being right there. So
I swim in Wiki Watchy as a mermaid. So they actually do a summer camp, and you have to be over 30 years old to do it. And it actually helps raise funds for the park itself. So it's called Friends of Wiki Watchy. They put on Sirens of the Deep camp. So what you do is you go there. It's a 2-day camp. It's from 8 to 4, 2 days. You get to swim in Wiki Watchy Springhead. So basically, they're training you as a mermaid, or doing underwater ballet between all the shows that they have every day. And I've mermaided for, yeah, it's a verb, mermaiding. It's amazing. It's free diving, but on like expert mode, as I like to call it, because you don't get a mask. you don't you just got to put on a beautiful smile. You got to relax your face. You got to relax your eyes. You swim super gracefully. Your legs are bound in like a tail skin with a monofin. You can only go so far. So all your movements count and your breath hold counts, but you also have to look like you're just having the time of your life. But it was the most amazing experience of my life. And one, it raises money for the organization that helps take care of Wiki Watchy, because it's now part of the Florida State Park System. And it's one of Florida's earlier tourist attractions from 1947. Fun fact. And just swimming in that spring head was so surreal. I've swam in so many springs, mermaiding or just free diving in general, and there was something about that spring head that just blew my mind. Because, well, here's the thing: is, so it's a first magnitude spring. and it pumps out over, a million gallons of water a day. And you can swim to the cave entrance, but it's going to push you right back because, the water pressure is so strong from the aquifer. But it was just so beautiful. And honestly, okay, so the coolest part, I'm the person that makes fun of all the people with their Bluetooth speakers on paddle boards and their kayaks, but listening to music underwater is next level. Oh my God. Because I'd never heard music underwater. Like as a kid, you pretend to be a mermaid in the pool, but then listening to, I realized like how the performers lip sync now is because they can hear the music underwater. And now they're doing this whole Halloween special, and it's actually based on Stranger Things. And I remember when I was doing my training, I jumped in the water really quick, and I really ticked off my counselor. And all the counselors are the original Wiki Watchy mermaids, which is amazing. But I jumped in there because I got so excited because I heard Kate Bush running up that hill. So I just jumped right in the water. And the thing with like, at least me, I'm listening to this music underwater and I just completely forget about my breath hold. I'm just swimming and you're just enjoying yourself. And it's so surreal and it's so beautiful. And you think, wow, this is actually what dreams are made out of. I mean, unless you have like thalassophobia, because it's pretty spooky if you're afraid of like deep water with weird caves and things like that. But it was amazing. But all the women that volunteer their time to train you to mermaid or to do underwater ballet. And I remember the lady that I was paired up with, and she had me do basic swims. And I've done the mermaiding thing for a year. And the highest compliment I've ever received in my life was being told by the OG Wiki Watching mermaids that my mermaiding was beautiful. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go home and cry now. Thank you. My life has been made. I've accomplished everything.
That is amazing and so much fun. I'm including the show notes, the website and stuff for Wiki Watchy and things like that. So you can look into that and go see the shows and go see the Stranger Things. Mark, you got to check that out. And
I got to check that. That's going on the list. That's going on the
Yeah.
bucket list while I'm down there for October.
Oh, heck yes.
And then,
Wonder House
we always go to Wiki Watchy because Riku Browning, he was the last of the Universal monsters. He did the underwater parts as the creature, and he trained at Wiki Watchy, and he trained a lot of the mermaids. So this is your third gen. You're the creature from the Black Lagoon's granddaughter. So there you go.
I like that. I like that. Okay. So look, we've gotten travels in our travelers episode.
Yeah, a place you can go visit. You got 2 places you can go visit. So
Krislin, if we're going to put this all in the show notes, but if somebody wants to reach out to you at the house, what is the best way to do that besides do not show up at this house without previously coordinating it. If you do, it's Florida, there's guns. Let me just put it that way.
Second Amendment, baby. That's all that's going to happen.
Yeah. So, Krislin, how do people reach out to you, though, if they want to come see the Wonder House?
So the best way to reach out is actually just to go online to wonderhousebartow.com. That's the website. It has all the information on the website. You can click through there and go to the booking site, which is bookio.com/wonderhousebartow. But you just click book a tour. And so I have all my Halloween tours listed on there. Christmas tours begin on November 1st. So I do switch over.
You do a hell of a Christmas show too. So
that's okay. So Halloween is a lifestyle, but I like the Christmas tours because I bake for some of the night tours. So Christmas tours usually start the Black Friday, like right after Thanksgiving. So because I usually do like a camping trip before then to get my brain in the right situation. I usually try to go diving like every single day. So I'm like, all right, because I work so much this holiday season. I don't really get any breaks. So I try to take a small one so I can kind of recollect my thoughts and feelings about life. But Christmas is beautiful because again, I make some mulled wine. There's Kringles, there's sugared cranberries. I do the whole shebang. The house looks like a whole gingerbread house on the outside. Everything is lit up from top to bottom. So, I mean, it's a really, really magical time to come. If you don't like Halloween, then come for Christmas. But Halloween, it's only 1 month. I can't do Halloween for 2 months. So it's only October 1st to, I want to say, like the 29th, 30th.
All right.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, this has been exciting. I didn't even know about
Yeah.
the Wonder House.
So
Very cool.
dates open up on the 1st. We'll get people to go online to they'll have already been open, gang. So get out there, get onto the website, and book those tours, because they're going to be gone before you know it. Krislin always puts on one amazing show, and we love it dearly. And I love the Wonder House. We love you dearly. Thank you so much for coming on. So
Yes, and we will we're getting the Friends of the Erie Travels on the website, so the Wonder House will be listed up there so that you can in the future click on it and find her and do all that. So Krislin, we'll have to have you back sometime in the future about more of the adventures. I love it. So
there is no limit to the adventures.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Well, part of our Erie travels is next time I'm down there with Mark, we're gonna have to figure out a way to come stop by, maybe over a Christmas or something. Anyway, I'm gonna have to come see it during the day.
And like I said, I'm interested in that ghost tour. So let me know when, because I don't think I've ever seen the 4th floor. So I'm excited. So
Okay, well, I'm not going to that. We all know that. Okay.
all right. Well,
Mark?
with that, travelers, thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful excursion to Bartow, Florida, and the Wonder House. And book your tours now. And as always, like, share, subscribe, let your friends know about us. And we hope you're enjoying spooky season this October. We have much more to talk about in the future, so stay tuned for future episodes. And we will see you on the other side.